and welcome to the PvE-Gamer. Today we are going on an achievement hunt for Sky Tier Horde, and I'm going to introduce a deck to you that at least manages on level easy and normal to claim one of the base box achievements. We are not in the first season of our league, but already some people have registered for the league, and some like Solar and Marcel were even as bold as starting to claim achievements for the first season already. You can do that directly over the Skill Display platform. The app currently only shows the base box achievements until season 1 is officially started, but hey, if you are already motivated to push back the horde how hard you can, feel free to do so. Today we still have not launched into the official start of season 1 and are looking at a base box achievement, and one of those achievements is the Mentalist achievement. In the Mentalist achievement, you are not allowed to play any allies except 2 heroes, and you have to win the game, which isn't really that easy when you only look at the card pool from the base box. So I've assembled a deck and beaten the horde and claimed this achievement on easy and normal. On painful, it is really a high variance game, and I've lost 6 rounds so far. I'll really come to the details of this challenge and why it is so hard to claim this achievement. But let's look at the deck and the card by card analysis. So first of all, we take the Cloud Gate as castle. You can exhaust the Cloud Gate and pay 1 mana to choose 1, draw a card, or rebuild 2. Especially the rebuild 2 effect is something that comes in handy as you are having cards pillaged over and over when not being able to pull the minions in the lanes or destroy them directly, which is pretty hard because you have to settle to 3 main colors, which are Nupten in Legendary and Mythic slot, in the Rare slot Nupten and Leothan, and in the base slot Nupten, Leothan and Kurumo. This is the only feasible option of colors I did find, mostly because the cards are just not there. If you have rare cards, if you have mythic or legendary cards from Leothan, there are so many allies in Leothan that this isn't really worth your time, and other color combinations rule out key components or strong cards that you need. So let's take a look at the cards which are in the deck and the reason why they are in the deck. I'll also link the deck in the show notes, as always, at the Sky Tier DB. Everything is stored for your convenience. So first of all, we have Speak with the Spirits, and this is a spell that on play you can choose 2, an ally gains 2 attack, an ally gains 2 health, or remove up to 4 damage from the castle. This card is great, and you want to recycle it as often as possible, because when you have a hero in play, which is either Akuthi or Shaidos in this deck, we'll come to that later, you want to buff them and keep them on the table as long as possible. And obviously healing and giving them additional attack points helps a lot with that. Also, if you're already on the threshold of losing by getting damage on the castle, you can heal the castle with this spell. So very good spell here for 2 mana. Speak with the Spirits, very powerful. I like it a lot. Bloodlust. We have +2 attack and +1 armor for the remainder of the turn. This usually enables you to beat down a very tough opponent or get this point of armor that you need to let the hero who fights survive. It only costs 1 mana and it can be played as at instant speed. So a spell that comes in handy. As you see, we have quite some spells which target heroes in play, but this is only because we have a very small selection of available spells who are not allies, so we have to stick to what we have in the box. Sky Tier Mine, a very good spell in this deck. You pay 1, add 2 mana, so you're on +1 on mana, and you can remove 2 damage from an ally, also from a hero in this case, or from the castle. So very nice card draw is usually not a problem in this deck. So this comes in handy quite a lot. Stream of Life, this is a card I often see myself discard. It can be very interesting in niche cases where you have the luxury of having an additional round and being able to fully heal up an ally or fully heal up a hero that has been damaged. And for the remainder of the turn you can block one of the mighty or big horde monsters, also prevent trample damage. That is very nice. Apart from that, nothing I see myself play too often, especially at 2 mana. Strike Terror, I'm usually not that of a big fan of Strike Terror because it only delays the horde and doesn't really improve your position that much. But in this deck it is important to build your cycle of Mentalists and pull up your big damage spells and get enough time for that. So Strike Terror comes in handy for this deck. I like it a lot in this version of the deck. It also draws you a card for 2 and you put a non-epic monster on top of the outsider pile, but mind, this is the outsider pile and not the horde draw pile, so this will not get discarded afterwards, but it will stay and wait in the horde pile until you are instructed to summon the outsider, and then this monster will come back to your lane. Overflow, a very important spell, as the main tactic of this deck is to draw into the heroes as soon as possible. So usually you get your starting hand, you have 5 cards. If you don't see a hero in those 5 cards or an overflow, you discard down everything that is not a hero or an overflow and redraw as many cards as possible, trying to get the heroes in hand so you have something to pull the minions. Overflow obviously draws 4 cards, then shuffle your deck, then discard 2 cards from your hand. The chance that you will discard an ally is practically 0, but then again we have so many filler cards in here that we have to play because of the limited card pool that choosing 2 cards to discard is usually not a problem. Shydros, one of the 2 heroes. I chose him over Haburat just because he's so sturdy. He has armor 2, so that means you can prevent 2 damage each turn. He has 7 life, and he can even prevent the pal Akuti from dying and shielding her and taking the damage that she would have to take. So you can keep him in play. Even if the horde pulls out some tricks, he will usually live. So very strong character. The only drawback is that he costs 6 mana, but that is something that you can usually manage, especially on easy and on normal. Akuti herself is great. She costs 3 mana and immediately nets you 1 mana, so effectively, if you have the mana, you only pay 2 for her. All allies gain +1 armor, and apart from that, she's a 2/3 body, which you can pump up with the corresponding Leothan spells. So also a very nice hero, can be played rather soon and accelerates your mana base. Important key piece in this deck. Shadow of Death helps you to let your heroes survive in the fights against minions, against horde monsters which get revealed. Also it draws you a card, so I try to include as many cards in this deck which draw you a card, so you are able to cycle quickly through the deck in order to get to the heroes and play them. Shadow of Death, quite a good spell, especially for 1 mana. Psychic Shield allows you to save one of the heroes once they are out, and it also has Rebuild 1. So you put a card from your discard pile on the bottom of its deck. I saw myself recycling this spell with Rebuild from Akuti's Cloudgate a lot, so with the castle ability to rebuild even more cards and playing Psychic Shield again for 1 mana. Again, very nice thing. It also helps you a lot if you have very bad luck and the minions pillage 1 or 2 heroes at the start of the game. You can rebuild them immediately and then, for example, cast a Discovery of the Depths, another card that tries to dig through your library, rebuilds and has the added benefit of shuffling your deck. So if you had to discard your Shidos or your Akuti, you are able to shuffle them back into the deck and even draw them sooner than you might have. Mind Control, very expensive, but very, very important spell. This is one of my B conditions, or second best conditions, to stabilize the board. If you do not draw into a hero, you try to save up enough mana to play a Mind Control, gain control of a non-epic monster, and then start buffing the hell out of these things just to keep them on the board and to keep them safe, trying each turn to at least kill small minions while you buff them and while you make the monster your new best friend, which tries to help you win the game. Bearing the Way. Up to 2 allies gain +1 armor for the remainder of the turn. Obviously we will not often have situations where we can target 2 allies with that, but mind, you can play it even not when having 2 allies in play, because it says up to 2, so this can even be 0 and you could cycle it for 1 mana. Not something you will do usually, but that 1 armor sometimes helps saving an ally, and it cycles the card, so why not? Farsight Tower. Very, very strong card. What I usually end up doing is recycling Speak with the Spirits to buff the heroes on the board even more, or to get Mind Control back if it was pillaged. It is so good and so flexible, especially when you're in a board state where half your deck has already been pillaged. It effectively becomes a double tutor, because you can activate it 2 times, and returning a non-ally card from your discard pile to a hand will be almost all cards in our deck, because we only have 2 heroes. Then the classic Mentalist cards, which are the namesake for this achievement. We have the Shield Mentalist, the Summoner Mentalist. Unfortunately, as we cannot play other allies, we cannot play the Mentalist Tutor, but we have the Shield Mentalist and the Summoner Mentalist. Especially the Summoner Mentalist is very nice if you manage to get it out at the start of the game, because it will give you 1 extra mana. What I didn't manage to pull off very often was that the top 2 cards of my deck had any effect, because I wasn't able to tutor the top of my deck before activating this, but nevertheless it is a very good card. The Shield Mentalist is nice to have, but I usually end up casting it at the state where I've already established my board position. Then the Circle of Mentalist is a tower, not an ally, so we can play that. And the Circle of Mentalist can effectively be activated 3 times, and it gains -1, and for each attachment Mentalist on our castle we do 10 damage. So this is obviously, in easy and normal especially, our win condition if we do not manage to create a giant Shidos beast with attack and defense to the moon. We just play the Circle of Mentalists, and when you get this out, you usually are able to win the game. Last but not least, no, 2 cards left, we have Scepter of Kamno. I just played this because I was out of options, and Assault 1 is something that might be handy in edge cases. Most of the time I have to discard it or remove it. I just didn't find anything else that I wanted to play in its case. The towers in Kurumu are rather useless in a non-ally based deck, so the Scepter of Kamno has at least some edge case where you perhaps equip a Shidos with 1 or 2 of them and manage to do some extra damage to the outsider. And the infamous Frostbite Outpost. Personally, I'm not a fan of this card because it doesn't improve your board state. You give a monster -3 attack, so it will not bother in 1 turn, but it will also not go away. It costs you a card. But in this deck it is rather okay, just because you need the time to establish your mana and your board position. So if you can get out 2 extra turns from this and not lose too much damage to the not get too much damage on the castle, it is playable at least. So in this deck it comes in handy. Nothing bad to say for the Mentalist achievement in this deck. So that's all for today. I hope you have good results with this. At least on easy and on normal, it shouldn't pose too much of a problem to claim your own Mentalist achievement. Don't forget to enter the achievement in our scoreboard so we can brag with our common effort in defeating the Horde.